Good evening. My name is Ricardo Williams, and I'm about to present to you on how to use podcasts in the classroom. Our goals for today are identifying podcasts and describe what they are, discuss how podcasts work, discuss how podcasts can be used in the classroom, and assess what is needed and what issues might occur with podcasts. What are podcasts? Podcasts are an audio or visual video program formatted to be played on the iPod and make available for free for the internet. Podcasts are shows similar to radio or TV shows that are produced by professionals and amateurs and are posted to the internet for downloading, listening, or viewing. Many podcasts are made available for free, though some may be purchased. The name podcast derives from the combinations of broadcast and iPod. Podcasts can be downloaded individually or subscribed to so that new episodes of the podcast is automatically downloaded to the subscriber's computer. You can subscribe to a podcast at the iTunes Store or websites for the podcast. Podcast subscribers are usually facilitated by using an RSS feed. Podcasts can be browsed or previewed and downloaded at iTunes Store Podcast Directory. This is a video clip showing you how to create a podcast. This website also provides some podcast examples that are best used by teachers. How do podcasts work? To create or receive podcasts, you will need a device like an MP3 player or just your normal personal computer. Podcasts were invented so that anyone could create radio broadcasts or video broadcasts. They cover categories like comedy, politics, and entertainment, which makes the podcast great ways for people to market themselves. All that people need to do is to subscribe to a podcast feed that they may have, or get regular updates and download every episodes that are broadcast. A podcast is created when an MP3 file is made and sent to a server which can be converted into an XML format. The podcast is published through common internet servers and can be uploaded to various blog sites and community areas for people to see. It costs nothing to make or receive podcasts, and it can be subscribed or described as a visual text message that you receive daily or hourly. If you're looking to find out information, you can find them on the various podcast websites. You can find plenty of downloads on the iTunes website as well as podcast.com and podalley.com. They were created to be educational and entertaining. Why does it matter? Podcasts are a useful teaching tool. Podcasts are incorporated for students to show good language and writing skills, to show their speech and oral expression. Podcasts can be recorded and they can be accessed anywhere where there's internet access. Podcasts can become an informational product that can be accessed by teachers. They also offer new ways for teachers to teach, and also they can offer ways to access students' learning, performance, and engagement. Students are empowered by using podcasts so that they can increase their technology skills. And podcasts can also be used around the world as a teaching tool, and also can be used for fun. What are some barriers of podcasts? Some barriers of podcasts may be the lack of technology. Some teachers, school systems may not be able to use podcasts because of the lack of financial resources that they may have. Um, if a school or school system are using podcasts, they encourage teachers to use podcasts. They need to be encouraged and taught how to use this type of technology if they're not used to. Also, it offers a great way for teachers to pick up on learning styles of students. Also, there may be some opposition from parents by using podcasts. There may not be any internet access at the home. Parents may be also opposed or fearful of the technology that is being used. There also may be some privacy issues when it comes to posting students' work or their names on the internet. Also, you worry about student participation. Some students may be reluctant to participate in podcasts if you post certain types of work on the internet. If you cast it, will they listen to it? What are some possible assignments for a classroom podcast? Some possible assignments you could use are oral histories. Also, you can have students do some recordings of important information that may be happening throughout the school year, throughout the school week, or students just producing information about what's happening inside their classroom. What are some models of education podcasts? Some podcasts can be produced by a class as a whole. Some podcasts can be produced by students individually, and teachers also can produce podcasts to present information on an assignment so they can be able to access student work. Here is my works cited page that offers more information about podcasts and how they work and how they're being used in the classroom and how can you create a podcast. Thank you. My name is Ricardo Williams, and that is my presentation for podcasts in the classroom.